You're entering the future-ready CNBC TV 18 EBIX Cash Studio.
Have you ever wondered whether you are sensible or stupid to stay away from cryptocurrencies like bitcoins? Have you wondered what is blockchain or how does this Bitcoin work? And in the midst of all this, why are central banks like Reserve Bank talking about launching digital currencies? Well, here's an answer to all possible questions on fintechs, cryptos, and fuddy-duddy central banks. A new book titled Future of Money by Professor Ishwar Prasad. The book is a boon to investors and indeed to anyone remotely curious about digital currencies. It's also a handbook for policymakers. Well, today I have with me the author himself, Professor Ishwar Prasad. Welcome, Dr. Prasad. Let me warn you, since you are also a China expert and it is top of the mind for investors, I will ask you about what's going on there. But first, congratulations on your excellent book. For the first time, I have read something in simple English about how Bitcoin works or what is blockchain. Your diagrams were most useful. I must thank you for that.
Thank you, Lata, for your very kind words about the book and also for having me on your show. And of course, happy to talk about cryptos, China, and all else.
Okay. Well, they mingle a lot anyway. Well, first, actually, I wanted to, we won't have so much time to, even give a brief summary of that brilliant explanation you have about Bitcoins, how it is mined and traded. But actually, as a layperson, my question to you is, what is your estimate of the future of Bitcoin? Do you think, like, I bought gold and my child will buy Bitcoin as an investment? Is it the new gold? Or do you think this experiment is going to end rather badly?
So Bitcoin's initial allure was that it would be a medium of exchange. It would allow you to conduct financial transactions without the use of central bank money or through a trusted intermediary such as a commercial bank. And that was certainly an alluring prospect because it happened right after the global financial crisis, which is when Bitcoin was initially created, when trust in central banks and commercial banks was at an all-time low. Bitcoin also had the promise of allowing you to conduct these transactions using just your digital identities rather than your real identities. So Bitcoin was initially used for illicit transactions, but it turns out that as Bitcoin gained more traction, it came into the mainstream and it turned out not to be a great medium of exchange.
Yeah.
Because it has very unstable value. Prices fluctuate a lot from day to day, if not from minute to minute. And it turns out to be quite expensive, slow, and cumbersome to use Bitcoin. So while it did not serve well in its basic purpose of being a medium of exchange, somewhat paradoxically, Bitcoin has become a financial asset. That is, people seem to hold on to Bitcoin largely because they believe it will increase in value. So the question is, if Bitcoin does not serve its basic purpose, if it doesn't have any intrinsic value as a medium of exchange, where does its value come from? Bitcoin adherents will tell you that if you think about the Reserve Bank of India or the US Federal Reserve, they can print fiat currencies at will, essentially in infinite amounts. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is scarce, just like gold. There are going to be at most 21 million Bitcoins, of which about 18.5 million have been mined so far. So that seems to be the underlying notion. Since Bitcoin is scarce, it's going to have value. Okay. I think the reality, though, Lata, is that people are getting taken away by the razzle-dazzle of the new technology. Because as you and I know as economists, just because something is scarce, it's not necessarily going to have value. So I fear that Bitcoin may not end well, especially for the naive retail investors who get into the party at the last stages. But certainly Bitcoin's underlying technology is what I think is going to be truly transformative.
Okay, yes, the Bitcoin technology and the blockchain technology. And for once I understood after your elaborate diagrams. Professor Prasad, like you pointed out, you fear that it perhaps will not end well. Why are some central banks afraid of it and some are not? For instance, Ohio, I think, did you say, allows you to pay taxes, one of the US states? I forget. I raced through the 400 pages in 4 days. I think it is Ohio, you said. And yet we have Shaktikanta Das, our governor, repeatedly saying that RBI has serious concerns. And then China at the other end has actually, banned trading, though not ownership. So very, very diverging reactions.
So cryptocurrencies do excite some degree of excitement as well as some fear among regulators in particular. The example that you mentioned of Ohio agreeing to accept tax payments in Bitcoin did not last very long, actually, because there were concerns about, again, the value of Bitcoin and whether it could really serve as a legitimate currency. In many countries, Bitcoin is seen as providing the basis for certain innovations. And countries like the US have been somewhat more open to allowing cryptocurrencies to proliferate. But there are concerns about what new cryptocurrencies might mean for financial stability and for other forms of nefarious financial activities. I mentioned that Bitcoin has very unstable value. So there is a new breed of cryptocurrencies called stable coins that are meant to solve that problem. They do that essentially by being backed up by stores of fiat currencies, such as US dollars, US dollar related financial assets. Facebook, for instance, plans to issue its own stable coin called Diem, which would again be backed by stores of US dollars or other hard currencies. Now, the concern that regulators have are manifold. First of all, there is the issue of investor protection, people going into cryptocurrencies because they see it as financial assets that are going to go only one way, which is up. So when you have naive investors flooding into these markets, there is a concern. Some cryptocurrencies have been used for market manipulation in other parts of the cryptocurrency segment, but also other parts of financial markets. So there is a lot of attention being paid to cryptocurrency related derivative products that allow you to bet on the prices of cryptocurrencies. Then when it comes to stable coins, they seem relatively risk-free, but the concern is that it's not clear who is going to audit the reserves of these stable coins and whether in fact the underlying assets are going to be truly liquid if there were to be a large amount of redemptions at the same time. We saw this during the global financial crisis when money market mutual funds in the US, which were seen as the safest of investments because they were backed up by US Treasury securities and other such high quality assets, those turned out to be risky because in the midst of the crisis, those securities were not easy to unload to meet investor demands. The final concern is about the use of these cryptocurrencies for illicit activities, especially across national borders. Things like drug trafficking, terrorism financing, money laundering, and so on, could be facilitated by these cryptocurrencies. And that is something that regulators are very keen to keep an eye on. So this is why China, for instance, is not eager to have cryptocurrencies proliferate because it's concerned about capital being easy to move across its borders and about financial stability and social stability considerations within China itself.
Absolutely. So actually, well, for those of you who are watching us, the central banks